So the FEMA 50% rule is associated with the requirements from the National Flood Insurance Program. So that's where it comes from, essentially at the federal level. But each local municipality is put in a position of kind of enforcing compliance with the 50% rule. What it is that for properties that are non-conforming, and in the case of the 50% rule, when we say non-conforming, what we mean is that the first finished floor of living area is below current base flood elevation requirements. Those properties are subject to this rule. And it means that if you need to do work on those properties, either because of one, substantial damage, or two, even outside of the context of a storm, if you wanted to make substantial improvements to that property, you're subject to this rule. And so if the structure value, let's say for example, is $300,000, the 50% rule says you can only do $150,000 worth of work to that non-conforming structure. The whole idea of the rule is essentially to phase out over time properties that are flood prone and are inconsistent with the current base flood elevations. Structure value for purposes of the 50% rule is also something that's codified inside of FEMA's rules that are then adopted at a local level through ordinance. So there's a little bit of flexibility, but for the most part, a structure value can be determined through a few different ways. A private property appraisal, an adjusted assessed structure value, an actual cash value, or something called a qualified estimate. Usually, the structure value is going to be determined either through an adjusted assessed structure value or through a private property appraisal. Most municipalities locally are trying to communicate those options as best they can to property owners right now and explain what those differences are. And obviously in the aftermath of the storm, that's a challenging lift for most of the municipalities with everything else going on. But one of the things that we've been doing also over the past several weeks is fielding phone calls to help people understand. In many cases, folks will call us thinking they need a private property appraisal, and we're actually able to work through the numbers with them and realize that they don't need us at all. And there's no reason to hire us and spend the money on it because there's enough assessed structure value in place. And so it's just its own process that takes a little bit of time to figure out. But there's great resources from each municipality locally to help determine what those numbers are.